Righty, welcome everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Brownsville Tech Live for 2026. And it is my honor and pleasure to have once again our Cameron County Judge, Eddie Trevino, back for a fourth time. Judge Trevino, welcome back.
Good evening, Daniel. Happy New Year to you and your family. Thanks for having me.
Hap- Happy New Year to you too, sir. Well, I know it's 2026. It's an exciting year for all of us. I know for you, you are running for re-election. Can you give those of us who may not be familiar with who you are, maybe some of our new residents that have come in from elsewhere, especially our SpaceX followers that have moved from California, who you are, where you've been, what you've done, where you were born, where you went to school with?
Well, I was born and raised here in Brownsville. Graduated from St. Joe many moons ago, and attended St. Mary's University. Got a bachelor's degree in international relations. Ever since I was 7 years old, I had a conversation with my grandmother, who was taking care of me that particular day, and she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said I wanted to play for the Cowboys because back then the Cowboys were winning. Um, I have to add that statement to nowadays because a lot of kids look at me like, why would you want to play for the Cowboys? Anyway, and she says, well, in case you don't play for the Cowboys, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just a kid, Grandma. And she said, you should become a lawyer. And I said, well, what does a lawyer do? And she said, a lawyer is someone who gets paid to argue. So at that moment, the light bulb in my brain went off, and I felt I had my calling. And from that moment on, I had my drive and motivation to become a lawyer. I was very fortunate to know our former federal judge, may he rest in peace, Philemon Vela, who became a mentor of mine, and I got to meet several other lawyers and judges through my dad and my parents. And so anyway, I left with the intention of staying in San Antonio. I was fortunate enough to get accepted into the University of Texas School of Law, and so I went to Texas for law school, graduating from there, and I've been a lawyer now for 36 years. In an earlier lifetime, almost, let's see, almost 25 years ago, 24 and a half years ago, I was first elected to the City Commission of Brownsville as a city commissioner. And then I had the privilege of serving as mayor of Brownsville from 2003 to 2007. Took a break and entered public life again back in 2016, 2015, 2016, when I ran for the unexpired term of former County Judge Carlos Cascos. Luckily, we were able to be successful in that election, and thank God I've been in office since then. Had elections in 2018, 2022, and now once again in 2026.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you is what made you decide to run one more time? I know there's probably a lot of things you want to do, and could you give us a little bit of a insight
It's
as to running
it's
again?
so yeah, it's a lot of people keep asking me why I ever ran the first time, and I tell them that I thoroughly enjoy my job being county judge. It's a privilege and it's a blessing, and I wouldn't trade it for any other job. I've been encouraged to run for many other offices throughout the years for other positions, but really, when I was mayor and commissioner, and I got the chance to work with then County Judge Gilberto Hinojosa, and I saw how he worked and what a county judge was supposed to do. Previous to that, I had worked with former County Judge Tony Garza, and I saw what they did, and I really liked the fact that they had their pulse on the entire county. So it's very difficult as a public official, as an elected official, to get things done right away. Sometimes projects can languish for many years because of lack of support, lack of funding, whatever the case might be. There might be, economic issues, environmental issues, whatever it may be. Usually, it's lack of funding, which is always the biggest problem. And it takes a long time sometimes to see these big projects, to become reality. So A lot of the projects that I started, honestly, I'd like to see them to their completion, or at least make sure that they're definitely on their way and no longer just on the drawing board or in the process of becoming a reality. So, COVID was a very difficult time for all of us, but I felt that it was an opportunity for me to really, really serve my community in a situation that I would have never, ever expected, where my decisions were having life or death consequences. But I love being county judge. I feel that we've done a good job. I feel that we've made progress, and I feel that there's more to do. And I'd
Wow.
like to see those projects come to fruition, or finalize them, or keep them moving forward.
Well, sir, one of the things that you just mentioned is obviously you served as our county judge during the COVID crisis. I don't think any county judge before you had ever experienced such a situation with a pandemic. I mean, I remember you on TV, mobilizing the troops, getting people to get to the places where they could get injections. Um, it was quite a tough time. I mean, I was even on the front lines during that time as well, trying to get infusion clinics set up during that time. It had been something that we had never seen before. In fact, unfortunately, in my family, I lost about three individuals, relatives, because of COVID. And it was a very tough time. And you definitely showed leadership during that time. I don't think any of your predecessors beforehand had ever been through that. So,
Well, it wasn't easy, and it was obviously a difficult time. I believe we've lost over 2,300 souls during that time, and subsequent to COVID. So I'll always go to my grave wondering what else we could have done to try to save those lives. But I'm comforted by people like yourself and many others, health professionals, nurses, people of the community, who have told me that they appreciated the efforts that we had and that we made to do everything we could to inform and to save lives. So, we can learn. I hope to God we never have to deal with another pandemic. But as I told people back then, it wasn't like there was a book at the county judge's desk that it said, pandemics for dummies. This we had to learn on the fly, and I relied on the health professionals, the physicians, the all of the educators, researchers, and everybody who I could count on, and to ask questions. And I think that's why I think we had, as I don't want to say positive, but it could have been a lot worse, I think, and people were receptive to what we were trying to do.
is there anything, sir, that you learned along the way with regards to the needs of the community, health wise, that we need to improve? Not as a community, things that we need that we didn't have before. Is there anything you'd like to see in the future with regards to healthcare in general? And of course, as you know, these days with certain actions of the federal government, people are on the verge of losing their health care. Their premiums are going up quite a bit. Um, is there anything you learned during that time period that you think you'd like to see in the future?
We're the richest country in the world, and yet many people in our country, in our community, suffer because they don't have cover health insurance, or they don't have proper or adequate health insurance. We just saw the subsidies go by the wayside. They didn't even get a vote, and I know it's impacting people. And now, perhaps on the political side, they're realizing that this is not the right. They don't want to be on the wrong side of this particular issue. We're a growing community. We've got 1.5 million people on our side between Cameron and Hidalgo County and Willacy and Starr. We're growing. Healthcare today is certainly better than what it was 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But we still have a lot of catching up to do to make sure that everybody has the care that they need. And more importantly, when you hear about rural clinics throughout our state, closing, or shutting down services because they're underfunded or don't have sufficient funding, That to me is just that's not we. I know this country can do better, and we become so polarized that on an issue like healthcare, making sure that our fellow neighbors are able to go to the doctor or go to the hospital when they're sick, that should not be an issue where they're worried, well, I can't, I've got to worry about making sure I have enough food so I won't go to the doctor or vice versa. So I think there's more to do. And if there's any issue among many, but healthcare should definitely be a bipartisan one. The rest of the world has figured out how to provide healthcare for its residents and its citizens. We should be able to do so also.
Right, right. So for there's a lot of misconception out there with what a county judge actually does. They think that you pretty much control every county department, and I know that's not the case. Could you kind of give us, for those people that are kind of confused about what a county judge actually does, could you tell us, what you're responsible and for and what you're not responsible
You,
for?
you know, Texas being Texas, we like to do things, unique and separate and different. And basically, we decided in Texas years ago when we divided up the state, we divided into 254 counties, and the head official, we called him or her county judge. Many rural counties, the county judge serves judicial functions. They provide. Matter of fact, my counterpart in Willacy, Judge Guerra, he handles county court at law matters in Willacy County and probate matters. But most of us, especially in an urban area, basically do more administrative function. I like to say we're like the mayor of the county. So for all of the entire county, we handle the administrative. The county judge handles the commissioners' court meetings with the four other county commissioners. Every county has the same one county judge and four county commissioners, regardless of the population. And then the county commissioners court basically is responsible for establishing and operating the county budget, which then is seen by many of the different elected officials. We have the judicial, which is includes the law enforcement aspect of it with the sheriff's department, the constable's department, the jail division, the court system. We have the health department, which obviously we kind of talked about a little bit a while ago. They handle public health aspect with regards to the county. We've got the county parks division. We've got emergency management, which is my responsibility. COVID was an example, a very unique example, but normally we deal with it with regards to natural disasters, hurricanes, flooding, anything of that nature. So those are some examples of what a county judge does. But the county has, I believe, 34 or 36 elected officials. So each one of them is responsible, as we say, to their constituents. There are some officials that are elected countywide, the state district judges, the county clerk, the district clerk, the treasurer, the tax assessor. But pretty much everyone else after that has their own particular precinct or area that they're responsible for. Well, it's incumbent upon me to work with each and every one of those elected officials, JPs, whatever they may be, to help them do their job. And they come to us basically. Our authority, if you will, is budgetary, and we have to make sure that we are good fiduciaries, good fiscal agents, handling the taxpayers' monies and making sure that we do everything we possibly can to protect them and use it as best we can for the benefit of all.
Okay. All right. Well, that kind of gives us an insight as to what the role of a county judge. If you could, sir, could you list some of the accomplishments that you are most proud of during your tenure as county judge? Are there things that you can kind of run down with us that you're proud of that you've
Well, I'm
accomplished
proud
over
of a
the
lot of
years?
stuff, obviously. I'm proud of working with the commissioners court that I've been working with over the last 9 years. Over the last 3 years, we've lowered the property tax rate 3 straight years. We've increased wages for our county employees. We went from $8 to almost $15 in my time. We've increased commitments to law enforcement. We know that our sheriff's department, our deputy sheriffs, our constables and deputy constables, and our jailers needed to be addressed, and that's been a priority. We've also invested in our county park system, almost $100 million since I've been here. Um, the one project that we're definitely we've made progress on. It hasn't broken ground yet, but it's the second causeway project. We're in the environmental phase right now. Hopefully that'll be taken care of in the next 18 to 24 months, and hopefully we'll begin construction within another 12 to 16 months after that. The our bridge systems. We've basically invested in and modernized all of the parks, all of the ports of entry at Gateway, at Los Tomates Veterans, and at Los Indios. And I'm proud to say that we're in the process of closing the deal for the purchase of the B&M bridge, which will give us basically then all the ports of entry here in Cameron County. So those are just a few of the projects and accomplishments that we've done, but there's much more to do. Much more to do.
One of the things I wanted to touch on a little bit was you did mention about the acquisition of the B&M Bridge, and obviously you've got the other ports of entries. Do you foresee any need to increase the bridge tolls at this point, or do you think they're going to remain at what they are today?
Well, it'll depend because we're still in the process of finalizing that purchase, and obviously B&M is a unique animal because it's owned half 50% by the country of Mexico.
Ah,
So we're handling issues as we finalize the detailed with regards to the purchase, and we're hopeful that as we get in there, we'll have to determine whether or not the tolls will remain the same at B&M. That's a question that we've been asked, and obviously we're mindful of that. But by the same token, it takes a lot of money to operate in these bridges. We have to work in concert with our friends at CBP, and we need to make sure also that we stay competitive with regards to the other ports of entry. So we'll see what develops here, hopefully over the next couple of months.
now there was also a mention a couple of months ago of a pedestrian bridge at Gateway. Has that already started, sir?
We received the presidential permit for the pedestrian bridge a couple of months ago in May, I believe. And prior to that, last year, we got the presidential permit for Florida de Mayo, which will be a passenger only bridge on the west side of Brownsville. So again, those are just, we could probably go for a long time just talking about the work and the projects that we've accomplished or that we're working on. And but the pedestrian bridge is very important because that's really when I first took office 9 years ago. I got together with then Congressman Philemon Vela, and we saw that there was a need because at Gateway we basically had one toll booth, and we were handling about 1 million people, 1 million pedestrians per year. We went up to El Paso to see their ports of entry and their pedestrian how operations to see how they're doing, and they had like it looked like an airport. You're talking about toll booths and lines and stuff, and they were handling about 5 million, and we only had one toll booth, and we were doing 20% of what they were doing, and we saw the need. So that was our initial idea, was to upgrade the pedestrian operations at Gateway. From that discussion and that idea, we got we spurred the development of a complete remodernization of Gateway, which is we're in the process. It's getting ready to begin construction here in the next couple of months. It'll be probably a little painful at times, as for people who are used to crossing, and especially crossing in numerous times during the day or during the week. But at the end of the day, that modernization, which hasn't been done and invested since the Eisenhower administration, we think is going to be extremely great with regards to the ability to move people and goods at Gateway, and it'll also allow us to focus our energies, obviously, at Los Tomates and Veterans, and expand our commercial operations over there with regards to our truck traffic.
Which I was going to touch on a little bit. I know that I usually have to take my daughter down to UTRGV uh, on any given day. Partly I take her, sir, because the commercial bridge traffic, the trucks going to Mexico is just horrendous. And I was wondering if there were any plans. I know that there was some talk a few years back about rerouting that commercial traffic completely out of the city.
That
Is
that project is known as the East Loop project. Um, this goes to show you how long it takes to get things done. We are finalizing the environmental. We're just trying to find the remaining funding dollars. We're still a little short, but that's going to happen here, hopefully starting real soon. TxDOT has been working on or International Boulevard, for quite some
right,
time. I had some people getting upset with me the other day why it wasn't finished, and I had to uh, remind them that that's not our responsibility. But I understand their concerns completely. But the East Loop would reroute that truck traffic that currently goes on International on the East Loop from Los Tomates to the Port of Brownsville. And that idea and that project we've been working on has been worked on since I was mayor, even before I was mayor. But
right.
we've got it on the TxDOT approved list, and we hope to finalize the funding that we're short, hopefully within the next year.
Okay. Yeah, I know, because what I usually have to do when that traffic gets backed up, I literally have to go to the left lane, turn on East Avenue, then make a U-turn to head back so I could go down University Boulevard. It's crazy. It's really bad.
You know the shortcuts, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a friend of mine that works down there at Customs, and I start calling him. I said, "Hey, why are you guys holding up the traffic?" Well, they blame it on the Mexican side. So
Right.
yeah, so tell me, what do you think some of the challenges are that we've got coming up in the future with regards to the county?
So,
What keeps you up at night, with regards to some of those challenges?
how do you know I'm up all night? Uh,
Well,
I have uh, I have a lot of concerns. There are so many issues. I really know, I really believe that we're doing well. I really truly do. But we cannot ignore the problems that we've been facing. We're a low-lying area. Flooding will always be a problem here whenever we have severe rains. We're doing everything we can to address that. Now, the county, in and of itself, is not in the drainage business. However, we work hand in hand with all of the drainage and irrigation districts. A few years ago, one of our other major accomplishments, especially with the leadership of and help of Commissioner Reese, was the development and creation of Drainage District Number 6 on the northern end. Northern Cameron County got hit twice with 500-year storms in 17 and 19 or 18 and 19. And I would always kids say, why are we calling them 500-year storms if we're going to have them every year? But Drainage District Number 6, we gave them ARPA money to get them started, and the voters of that area approved it. And if I recall correctly, it was over 80% approval rate. So that's near impossible to do on anything, especially when you're asking the people to allow you to tax them. But they knew that this was going to be beneficial, and we hit the ground running with the seed money that we got, plus the projects that we were looking at. The Drainage District Number 6 recently, or over the spring, submitted 10 applications to the Water Development Board for 10 different projects, totaling approximately 43 million, I believe. And they hit it out of the park. They got all 10 approved. So because of our seed money and our working with them to establish the creation and operation of the drainage district, we're making progress with regards to that. The flip side to the flooding is the reality that we're still dealing with drought situations with regards to the scarcity of water. When the valley was, in the 50s, we were an agrarian society, agrarian area. So they built the Falcon and Amistad dams and said this will take care of the water issue. Well, for many years that was fine because Mother Nature cooperated, but now we see that their water levels are at historic lows. Mexico hasn't made its full payment with regards to the water owed under the water treaty from 1944. But even if Mexico made its payments, we'd still be having severe problems because of the fact that where Mother Nature isn't cooperating. So we've got to look at other sources. When I was mayor, we opened the Southmost Regional Water Authority, which was the first groundwater authority. Other entities now realize the importance of that. But if we're all hitting that groundwater, which I remember a few years ago, we thought that it could last us for 150 or 200 years. But if everybody's hitting it and Mother Nature isn't cooperating, then that groundwater source could not last as long as we're anticipating, which leads to the reality that we've got to have multiple options. Obviously, the Rio Grande continues to be the main source, groundwater, and we're working and talking to different entities about establishing a major desal plant. Laguna Madre is working on a pilot program, a small one for them, but and that's great. We need to look at the reality of establishing or creating one for the region. When I was mayor, we were talking about desal, and it's always been it's too expensive. It's too expensive. Well, guess what? It hasn't gotten any cheaper in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, and it's not going to get any cheaper in the coming years. So the sooner we're able to make a commitment, find the funding from the state and the federal and or private interest, then I think we'll be better served with regards to our continued future growth, because without the water, we won't be able to have that continued growth.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I think you've heard it on the news, is there seems to be this frenzy. Communities across the country are trying to attract these data centers, for artificial intelligence and for operations. And I know that recently the city of Harlingen mentioned that they were trying to get or trying to lure a data center operation. And one of the things that one of the a couple of issues with a data center is obviously it requires electricity and it requires water for cooling. And do you have any concerns with regards whether we've got enough capacity to handle a data center of that magnitude? I know that in Hidalgo, they opened up a very small one over there at the New House Tower, but that's small potatoes compared to a huge data center. Additionally speaking, we need the infrastructure to attract additional job creators, to the area. What's your take? Do we need to look at that? I mean, there's water desalination. There's even options like small nuclear reactors. I mean, do we have the capacity to handle those things now, or do you think it's something we're going to have to look at down the road?
I thank you for that question, because obviously I've been hearing about it, same as you and everybody else on the news. Um, my, we're aware that some companies are looking and are moving forward, but they've not come to the county asking for any help or assistance at this point. And by that I mean they haven't told us that they're going to be asking for or seeking any type of a tax abatement. So if a company meets its requirements, in other words, it's able to find, and my understanding is that this particular one is looking at utilizing effluent water, which would normally just go back into the Rio Grande after it's been used and treated. If that's the case, then hopefully that doesn't impact the water or the amounts of water, for example, that Harlingen may need or require for its residents or for continued growth. The power situation, obviously, they've got to speak to whoever the provider is, if it's AEP or whoever. And the state's got to also understand that if they want to have these data centers, whether it's here or anywhere else, our grid and our electrical plants need to be both updated and developed new sources so that we're able to supply the power. Now, what we still need to do some work on is what is the environmental impact. Obviously, those two particular issues, the use of water and energy, need to make sure that it doesn't impact in a negative form the community or the surrounding communities. But the investments, dollar-wise, from what I'm understanding of these particular types of centers, are in the billions. Well,
Right.
Having lots of billion-dollar projects and being invested in our region normally is a positive thing. So we just need to make sure that if it's moving forward, that they do things the way they're supposed to, the way it's called for. They meet all licensing and regulatory measures and regulations, and we work to make sure that it becomes a win-win for everybody. That's I've always been a guy who's looked at things half full as opposed to half empty, especially in my responsibility as an elected and public official. Uh, Jobs is critical. High-paying jobs is even more critical and more important. So, um, I never say never. Let's make sure that we're all on the same page and that it is a win-win.
Well, one of the things that obviously you hear about quite a bit, and you guys get a lot of criticism for, is obviously SpaceX. You know, SpaceX is one of our largest employers, if not the largest employer now in the county. And you know, there's, you know, you've heard it before. They said, "Oh, the county gave away Boca Chica Beach, or the access, and so forth." Can you tell us a little bit now? I do want to say that in fairness, your predecessor, who's no longer with us, was the one that actually signed the original contract back in 2014. And I keep on saying this, that the business conditions during the time when that contract was signed were very different from the conditions for SpaceX today. Back then, they were looking at Falcon 9 launches. Starship wasn't
Right.
even on the radar, right? And so the conditions changed quite a bit. We never imagined back in 2014 that SpaceX would be the sole provider at this point for NASA, right? So a lot of the construction down at Starbase wasn't even thought about back then. But could you give us some insight into that relationship with SpaceX, and maybe talk a little bit about the concerns that you may have or some of the citizens have? Can you kind of set the record straight once and for
Yeah.
all with regards to
Yeah,
SpaceX?
let me set a few things straight. Number one, Boca Chica hasn't been given away to anyone. Number one. Number two, the county doesn't have the authority to give it away to anyone, even if it wanted to, which we don't. But that's a state public beach. Now, the state has given the county much authority with regards to the maintenance of it, which we were doing and have been doing up to this particular point. Now, like you mentioned, the original idea was that this was going to be a launch site for the Falcon 9. I took office in 2016, and I remember going out there shortly after I got elected. They basically had a mobile home, and that was it. They
Yep.
were starting to lay out the grid, so to speak, for the solar panels and stuff like that. But never would I have imagined, after seeing that one mobile home with three young engineers, all in their 20s, working, that we would reach the point that we're at now. Now, the other thing is, while access obviously needs to be controlled during a launch and or launch operations, that's for the public health and the public safety. It just makes absolute sense, right? But if you really, really look, and I haven't gotten the updated numbers, but if you look, because SpaceX moved much of its testing operations to the Massey location, closures have decreased immensely, immensely. And I want to say that in the last, probably since August, I think they've had two or three launches, right?
Right.
So maybe we had a few more closures other than those particular ones for some other ones that maybe. So for let's just say it was 6 to 8 days in the last 5 months that we've closed for launches. Um, you trade the trade-off there is you've got 4,000 plus current employees, and when that's the other part of the equation. I was um, I was approached. That's the word I'll use over the weekend, and by someone who had a lot of passion, and I respect that. But the problem was she was upset about these issues that you and I are right now talking about, And I was trying to say, well, let's talk about it, and let me try to inform you, and maybe you'll see what I'm talking about. But it never got to that point. She just started yelling at me and this and that, and no progress was made. But um, the idea that all of these 4,000 people are transplants from California is absolutely dead wrong. I was there a few months ago before one of the launches, and we were doing a tour of the floor, and they were working on the Raptor engines, okay, doing wiring and all sorts of technical stuff. But every person that was in that room, and there were about 30 working, they were all, well, maybe not all, but the great majority of them were from the Valley and Hispanic. I got a chance to talk to a couple of them, and I asked him, I said, hey, where'd you go to school? He says, I went to San Benito High School. I said, okay, where'd you go to college? He said, no, I haven't gone to college. And I said, really? And you're here working on a, he says, yeah, my brother was working here. I was working on an oil rig offshore. He said, come back. I think we can get you a job. And he started at the ground floor, so to speak, and they're working their way up. So that to me was a just great story to tell others that these jobs are going to our local people, which makes me that much prouder that our local workforce are the ones that are building the spaceship that's going to, you know, reinvigorate the entire space industry, get us back to the moon. The whole idea that Elon has with regards to the Starship is not just to get us to the moon and Mars and anywhere else. He wants to make the Starship the next mode of travel. And in order for SpaceX to really be profitable and the Starship, that's what he needs to do. Now, I've told people, I don't know if you'll ever get me on one of those, but imagine leaving Brownsville and being in Singapore in 45 minutes, or in Berlin, or in Spain, or wherever, in Argentina. You know, we be all, so in order to do that, the hope is that Brownsville, Cameron County, Starbase will be the next center for like Boeing is in Washington. In other
Right.
words, the center of aviation. So I'm not gonna bet against Elon with regards to making this a reality. I'm sure a lot of people thought the Wright brothers were crazy when they developed their plane and it flew in 1914, 1915, and 13 or 14 short years later, in 1929, Brownsville was opening its airport. So things can move very, very quickly, which we've seen as a result. One of the conversations I had with him when I was trying to convince him after we had discussed moving Starship over here, the operations, was trying to convince him to build a Tesla plant down here. And the argument we were using was, hey, we're building your rockets. We sure as heck can build your cars. Unfortunately, Tesla's got a board of directors, so he couldn't just unilaterally make the decision like he does with regards to SpaceX, since it's a private
Right.
company.
Right.
And I said, well, okay, if that's not a possibility, then I will you please consider, if you ever have the option or have the idea of moving your SpaceX headquarters, you need to move it down here to Cameron County. And lo and behold, they've made that announcement. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take quite a bit of time, but we're looking at doubling the number of SpaceX employees over the next 2 to 3 or 4 years, if not sooner. So these are, you know, you've got welders, laborers, pipe fitters that are making six figures or more. That's generational money in that just a few years ago no one would have ever thought was possible. So the other part of the equation was that we gave away our control. Well, actually, quite to the contrary, we took a position contrary to SpaceX and Starbase, and said that the county should not be have its authority regarding the closure of the road of Highway 4 and/or Boca Chica Beach taken away. We felt that it was working just fine, taking into account all of the considerations, everybody's needs. But the legislature passed a law this last session, basically doing just that. And I took a very public approach to that issue, objecting and fighting against that legislation. But it passed, so now we're here. We move on, so to speak. That battle is over. But we made it clear. So what? One of the fruits of that benefit is that Boca Chica has not had any investment from the state with regards to the dune protection. We signed an agreement with Starbase and SpaceX to help fund the restoration of the dunes at Boca Chica, and that is, in my mind, making lemonade out of lemon. So that money that SpaceX is going to be investing is critical to the protection of both short and long term of Boca Chica Beach. Believe it or not.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you, I know that you've had opportunities to hang out with Elon. I know that a few years back you went and took him to eat a Speedo Papa.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that, you're a Democrat, Elon's a Republican. And one thing, I'm not throwing rocks at your opponents, but I don't know what their positions are with regards to SpaceX. I worry about that. It's no secret that I'm a big SpaceX supporter, right? But I know where you've been. How do you handle that relationship between a Democrat and a Republican, and then take them out to eat Speedo Papas? And by the
Well,
way, whose idea was it? Did he want it? Did he want to eat Speedo Papas, or did you
I had
force him?
invited him. I had invited him to Charo Days and to Sombrero Fest. I did not know that he was an aficionado of the Speedo Papa till that particular day. So as we talked about the logistics for him coming in that weekend, and we were trying to figure out how to make it work. We got there, and he says, okay, so can we eat, can we drink? I said, we can do whatever you want. He said, well, what have we got? And I said, oh my, and I said, it's all local cultural food. So what are you looking at? And as we're walking around, he says, what's that? And I told him. He says, oh, let's try that. He had his son X with him on that particular visit, so he liked it. We got tacos. I don't know. We got a beer or soda. I guess we got soda. Probably there were a lot of people looking, but it was a nice time. And to go back to your question, this is part of, I think, part of our problem in our country, in our society nowadays. If you were a Republican and I was a Democrat, or vice versa, that didn't necessarily mean that you and I were not going to get along, or we weren't going to be able to work together and get things done. I grew up in a very different era. I'm also a student of history, but I feel I'm very much a common sense kind of rational kind of guy. If you, who maybe, let's just say, the most right wing guy or the most left wing guy, are going to help me get a project done or get something positive done for the community in which I've been chosen to lead and to serve, then I'm going to work with you. Now, maybe on the other 9 issues, you and I completely disagree and we can't get anywhere. But I'm also a firm believer that even if we can't completely agree, we can bridge that gap and make things better. And that the inability of people nowadays to both hear and have a conversation, listen, is it's just, it seems to be a bygone art form. So you know, I'm going to work with whoever is going to help me get things done. If they're a Republican, I have no qualms about it. If they're a Democrat, great, even better. But my responsibility is to the 500,000 people that I represent here in Cameron County. We're actually, you and I both know it's more like 600,000 or 700,000 people who live here. But census has us at at that number. But my responsibility isn't just to serve Democrats. If I was a Republican, it wouldn't only be just to serve Republicans. So that's how I look at things, and I think that's why I've been able to get things done in my tenure in public service. Back when I was commissioner and mayor, even those are technically nonpartisan, but I learned at a very young age that you get a lot more with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Sir, one of the things I wanted to touch on, and it's a big topic, is with regards to property tax relief. A lot of people are complaining about their property taxes have gone up astronomically, their property values. Obviously, those that want to sell their house don't complain too much about the value when they're trying to sell it. But obviously, when they get their appraisal bill every May, that's when the complaints start. I mean, what can we do? I mean, there's all kinds of fluff out there with regards to who's responsible for it, who's not responsible for it. There was an election about a year ago where we elected 4 representatives to the appraisal district. I'm not even sure what they do, what they can do. We've got a couple of other people running for county office that claim they can lower property taxes. I'm not really sure that's completely true, but can you give us an idea of what can be done, with
Okay.
regards to property tax relief?
As the county commissioners court, we're responsible for the Cameron County tax rate, just like the city of Brownsville is responsible for its city tax rate, BISD for its tax rate, and all of the other particular entities. The tax rate is obviously how you generate the property, your property revenue, your ad valorem. In Texas, we don't have an income tax, so our property taxes is basically the source of revenue for everyone. Each county has its own appraisal district. They don't report to the commissioners court. They don't report to Cameron County. They report to the state. And the the reality of the situation is that the appraisal district gets its direction or directives from the state, and they're supposed to follow that with regards to the proper evaluation of one's property. Um, Not necessarily market value, although that's what it's supposed to be quite honest with you. Now, one of the reasons, and you and I know this, and we didn't like it, we still don't like it, is that they would refer to the Valley or Brownsville, Cameron County as one of the poorest regions, the poorest city in the entire country. Well,
Oh,
part
don't
of
get me
that
started
problem
on
was
that.
was because we were a property poor area. So
Right.
therefore, the valuations were low and the tax rates had to be high in order to generate enough revenue to provide the services that are mandated: police, fire, emergency, roads, infrastructure, quality of life, whatever the case might be. So it's important that I guess that people understand that each entity does not do anything or have any control or responsibility or authority or oversight over the appraisal process. With that said, I've told everyone, if you think that your appraisal on your home or your business or whatever is too high or unreasonable, fight it. By all means, fight it and fight it till you're satisfied, or until you can. You can even end up in litigation over that if the case might be. But many people I think they forget, they've forgotten, and before they know it, they may have gotten hit with an increase that they really didn't pay close attention to. So I know we're criticized. The only thing we can try to do is handle the tax rate and also the budgetary process. Make sure that we're being good stewards of the tax dollars that we've been entrusted to handle. And the Cameron County tax rate is among the lowest in the entire valley, at a little over 43 cents. It's the Hidalgo County has a tax rate of about 56 or 57 cents. So that's 14 cents more than us. Uh, when when people have that issue, they need to go ahead and fight the appraisal. I'm hopeful that as we continue to grow, new growth, new buildings, that the evaluations of existing homes and infrastructure, or offices, retail, commercial, will basically kind of hit a plateau. But this is also the free market. I have not had one person, as you just mentioned, call to complain to me that they sold their house for double what they ever thought they could sell it for in the last couple of years. Not one person has called to complain. That's understandable, right? It makes sense. But in a free
Right.
market, because of the growth that we're having, this is a direct reflection.
Right.
So, on the one hand, we're criticized hey, you haven't brought in new jobs or new growth. We bring in the jobs and the growth, and one of the offsets of that is unfortunately higher valuations for your property. We used to tell people you can buy a house that will cost you half a million or 600 or 700,000 in Austin or San Antonio. Hey, you can get it down here for half of that, and that was a great deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe now it's not half. Maybe it's only a third, or
Right.
whatever the case might be. But the appraisals have gone up statewide. That's the other part of the equation that I think people need to know. I serve on different entities and organizations that are statewide with fellow commissioners and county judges, and that was one of the questions and conversations that we started having here in the recent past, basically since COVID, that whether or not their appraisals were going up, and I was surprised to hear that it was statewide, and it didn't matter whether it was a Democrat county or a Republican county. The valuations were going up, which confirmed to me that the state was kind of giving that direction to the appraisals districts to make sure that they were evaluating and their appraisals on the proper level.
One of the things that has been going on the last few months, and with regards to the ice raids, as you know, they've affected the communities, especially here in the valley, quite a bit. Do you have any concerns about that? I mean, obviously, the construction industry has been affected quite a bit. You've seen the videos on YouTube and TikTok where, I mean, these guys are getting yanked out of the construction sites. I mean, it's really affected. Um, I mean, what's your take on that?
I, I it's disheartening, disappointing, and extremely sad to see where we've come with regards to this particular issue. We live on the border. We know how hardworking Mexican Americans, Latinos, Hispanics are. Uh, they come in and do the jobs that quote unquote Americans would never ever stoop to do, and nowhere at the wages that they end up doing it for. They're doing the exact same thing that every other person is, which is chasing the American dream. Are there some bad apples? Well, of course there are some bad apples, just like there are bad apples in our own country, born and raised here, that's part of the human element. But the great majority of the immigrants who have come over, whether documented or not, are here to do a good job to provide for their families. To see how this has become such a divisive issue because it impacts us, Hispanics, Mexicanos, on a much greater scale than it does anybody else, is extremely, extremely disheartening and frustrating. And it's sad. Our country should be better than this. And the demonization of the immigrant, for me, is just something that I will never, ever be able to accept because I know that it's just a fallacy. It's just not right. And we pride ourselves on calling ourselves a Christian nation. Well, I seem to think I feel that we've kind of lost a little bit of our moral compass. Jesus told us to feed the poor, feed the hungry and shelter the poor. Help them if we can. And they're not asking for a handout. They're asking for a hand up. They're coming here to do the work that nobody else wants to do. Our roads aren't going to get built. Our homes aren't going to get built. Our vegetables and our fruits aren't going to get picked. What's going to happen? And I think that's part of what we're seeing right now with regards to the increase in prices. The farmers in our country also have been direct recipients of the impact of the tariff by the current administration. And now they're going to have to bail out the farmers. Well, how about we just have some good, rational, free trade policies that have worked as opposed to these global protectionist policies that we know don't work at the end of the day. And I know that there's been comments made that a lot of money's being raised by these tariffs. Well, who's paying it? We are. And that's
Right.
why a lot of people are having difficulty putting food on the table or figuring out how to make their budgets meet and feed their family. So I hope a year and a half ago, during the campaign in 24, Senator Langford from Oklahoma, a very conservative Republican, fashioned a rational, bipartisan immigration reform legislation. But then candidate President Trump didn't want there to even be a vote on that particular reform package. Why? Because that might have eliminated immigration as a political issue. Well, you know, if every problem is only a political issue and it's not getting solved, and both sides or both parties are just kicking the can down the road, we're no longer at a point where that kicking the can down the road is not having a severe and negative impact. This poor lady in a car last week, wrong place, wrong time, the being shot in the face. Now I know some people can say she was trying to run the guy over, she almost ran. I see the video. I don't see that, but that's where having local law enforcement who are trained in police and law enforcement, not necessarily immigration, but in law enforcement, traffic control. You know, it's just, I hope that we can take a step, take a breath, and really start realizing that what's going on in our country regarding the immigrants, regarding the demonization, and not, we want to allow federal agents, ICE, to arrest those serious criminals, because that's what everybody was expecting. What we've seen in the last several months is not what we were expecting.
Yeah. Now, I had the privilege of interviewing Mayor Villalobos from McAllen a few months ago, and we touched on this issue, and I asked him a pretty simple question: if he felt that the local McAllen police should assist ICE in these raids. And you've seen the TikTok videos. Sometimes people post all kinds of stuff about police and county law enforcement assisting ICE. Are you aware of any situation where the county has assisted in actual raids, or do you think that's off the table?
No, and matter of fact, we just approved the 287 mandate. We needed to address it so that it didn't jeopardize federal funding. But and this was something that's always, I think it's kind of always been the case, that if there was an individual who was arrested and is in our jail, and there's an ICE detainer, then they would notify, you know, federal law enforcement, immigration, or whoever, and let them know that person X, who had an ICE detainer, is in our jail, and then they'd have, you know, X number of amount of time to go ahead and pick them up. Assisting them in the raid, I don't think would be beneficial. However, assisting them in traffic control and making sure that you don't have the mixing of the protesters or the innocent bystanders with regards to the raid. That's what I'm having such a hard time understanding, is why are all of these situations becoming so volatile and escalating so quickly? Police officers are trained to try to de-escalate. And that's what they're trained to do, and that's what they normally do. Now, sometimes situations don't allow for that de-escalation, but you saw that first officer that was at the driver's side window. Well, he never reached for his gun. Now, as it turns out, this particular guy that shot the lady had been hit by a car. So maybe, you know, his perspective was very different because of his earlier experience, and he may have been maybe quicker to react than somebody else as far as, you know, pulling out the gun. But I just got to believe that we can be better, we can do better. We want to support law enforcement, but we also don't want to support unexcused and uninvestigated actions and activities by law enforcement. There has to be oversight when they exceed their authority or utilize deadly force when it's not called for.
All right. Well, obviously, we're down to our last question, and I wanted to give you an opportunity. I know that you're in a race with two other primary opponents, and you eventually will have a Republican opponent in the fall. So I want to give you an opportunity to kind of tell us what makes you different from your primary opponents. What makes Eddie Trevino different? Why, the voter out there should be uh, 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 looking at, and as far as, what to look out for during the general election. What makes Eddie Trevino different from everybody else that's running?
Well, first of all, Daniel, thank you for the opportunity. Every time I get the chance to speak to you, it's a very good, positive conversation. And I think that's exactly why people should be looking at the credentials of the people running for the highest office in Cameron County. They need to ask the questions. Look at my record. Look at my credentials. I've been a lawyer for 36 years. I was born and raised here. My parents were in the furniture and restaurant business. My first job was sitting people down at our family restaurant when I was 7 years old. So I've been working my entire life, and I know the worth of hard work and how important it is. Family is of critical importance to me. When I left for college and for law school, it was with the intent of not coming back. Like a lot of kids, oh, I can't wait to leave and move on. And I love San Antonio. It's my second favorite town. But when I got up there and I got to Austin for law school, I just started, and I'd come home for the summers. I started realizing, that if every kid who left didn't come back and share of their talents, whatever it may be, education or what have you, that our community was not going to prosper the way it should. So for whatever reason, my mind changed, my view changed, and I wanted to come back home to Brownsville because I felt that Brownsville and the Cameron County and the Valley as a whole was capable of so much more because I knew what the talents were of the people that were from down here. So I've been county judge now for 9 years. I served previously as commissioner and mayor for Brownsville. I've served on numerous, I can't even keep count of how many boards and committees and commissions I've worked on over the last 36 years since I moved back to Brownsville. I've been going to the same church since I was 6 years old, St. Mary's. Uh, my wife and I got married there a year ago. My kids were raised there, and I go to church there with my mom and my aunts and uncles every Sunday. I would ask the voter, obviously, get informed, look at the issues, look at the track record, look at what I've done, and look at what I've said. I don't make promises that I can't keep, and that's one of the things that I get criticized for. And I tell people I cannot commit to doing something that I know I can't do. I'm going to work hard towards it, but if it's something that I can't do, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do it because I know I can't. Um, Honesty, integrity, character, experience, I think are important qualities that you want in the person representing and leading Cameron County. If you look at the two other candidates in the Democratic primary, um, I don't believe that their record, their credentials, their experience, their education, their work experience, not even sure what they do. I know one of them was a former clerk and district clerk and sheriff, but we'll get into his record on another conversation. The other individual has been a port commissioner, but I don't know what his business is, what he does for a living. These are the issues that I think people need to ask. I've been out there in public life for over 25 years. Everything is out there. And you mentioned I get criticized. It comes with the territory. I understand that. I may not always enjoy it. I may not always like it, but I understand that it comes with the territory, and I'm willing to do that because I know that we've made a difference in moving Cameron County forward. A lot more to do. A lot of projects going on. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to work with everybody on both sides of the aisle to get things done. And that, to me, should be an asset. Some may say, well, you work with the Republicans. Well, or you're a Democrat. I'm looking at, and I've been shown some of the stuff that I'm being attacked on. A lot of the Republicans hate me just because I'm a Democrat, and they don't know anything about me or my record. And some Democrats say, well, you're too pro business. And I'm like, well, if it means jobs, if it means a better community, if it means more investment, in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, God willing, all of these companies that are here now and other ones that we're talking to are hoping that they're going to come, those millions and or billions of dollars being invested are going to help continue to lower our tax rate. And those taxes will also hopefully be able to be monitored and handled justly, because that's our fiduciary responsibility. But the minute you cut services because you don't have enough money, oh, I guarantee you people are going to be upset about that too. So a leader has to be able to make tough decisions and not just make political decisions for their own political well-being. So I'm proud of the record that I've accomplished to this point. I've done it with the help of the commissioners, many other elected officials, community leaders, administration, and employees. I could not have done any of it by myself, and I'm just asking for another opportunity to serve for another 4 years so that we can continue the positive work that we've done over the last 9 years.
All righty, sir. And when is the start of early voting?
Well, it is literally right around the corner. Early voting starts on February the 17th, which this year is a Tuesday because 16th, I believe, is MLK Day. So early voting starts on 17th, and the primary day itself is March the 3rd on that Tuesday. I want to say that the last day for voting is the Friday before that, so I believe that's the 27th, I believe.
Okay.
So it's right around the corner. So yeah, people need to get ready to go vote and do your studying on who the candidates are, what they represent, and what they're saying. And I'm hopeful that when people do that, they'll see that I'm the most qualified, experienced, and individual with character and integrity to serve.
All righty. Well, everyone, this was our interview with Cameron County Judge Eddie Trevino. I do want to remind everybody that it is important for everybody to get out there and vote, regardless of party. After all, this is our home, and you want to vote for a candidate who's been there, who's had your back through the tough times as well as the easy times, and has got a vision to lead us into the future. And we've got more interviews coming up with other candidates as well. But I appreciate, as always, for our county judge to agree to a fourth interview. I hope I wasn't too tough, sir.
No, sir.
All righty. Well, sir, you have a great evening. As always, it's enjoyable to have you on the show. You know that you're always welcome at any time, regardless of the issue. So,
thank you, Daniel. I appreciate what you do for our community and giving us the format and the opportunity to chat and to discuss topics that are of import and concern to our residents. We appreciate you. Thank you.
all righty. Thank you, sir. You have a great
Have a good
evening.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.